Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I want to say shalom to all the brothers and, of course, a few sisters who are pursuing this truth in sincerity. All right? May the blessing of election be upon your house. Now, every time you cut on the TV, you open up your phone, and you see anybody that looks like you, what this devil has done is he's taken the most degenerate, the most morally corrupt of our people, and he puts them up on a pedestal as an example of what it means to be so-called black. Okay? He puts these degenerate behaviors up so people will look at him and say, oh, this is what's celebrated. And everybody wants to be seen. It's in your human nature to want to be seen and appreciated. So these are the avenues that people see in regards to, examples that look like them. The sexy reds, the young thugs, the little Uzis, all right? There's only a few stereotypes that Jake gets. And when these things are celebrated, the behaviors, okay, the conduct that's attached to them often at time is so far away from the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. When someone follows it and they're walking in these people's footsteps or following these examples, it causes them to separate themselves from God. And this devil knows in order for him to keep us in a low position, that we have to be separated from our power. It goes all the way back, man. Whenever this devil would get into wars with Edom, they would what? They would wait till the Sabbath to attack. They would wait till a high holy day to attack. They would say, hey man, we gotta destroy that temple. We have to cut off their connection to their power, because that is the only way we can overthrow them. And it's going on today, man. But in elaborate ways. So I want to go to 1 Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. And we're going to start up at the top. All right? Because the whole chapter really epitomizes what we're going through in our time and the mindset that we should have. All right, so this is 1 Maccabees 2:1. All right, get to the page here. It says, during that time, a priest of the Jeholarib family named Mattathias, who was the son of John and the grandson of Simeon, moved from Jerusalem and settled in Modian. All right. Mattathias had 5 sons: John, also called Gadi; Simeon, also called Thassi; Judas, also called Maccabeus. That's the Judas Maccabeus that, led the revolt and gave way to our people being able to hold on to their customs during the Hellenization of the Greeks. All right? Which, the different priests during Yahweh Shah's time, they were descendants of that line, so they kind of, that's why they held themselves in such high regard. They looked at themselves the way they did, while the people looked at them the way that they did. But, we know that they weren't in the right spirit during that time, those descendants. Many of them weren't, because some of the Pharisees were believers, and they understood, they grasped on to, who Yahweh Shah was. But back to the point, we're here in verse 6 in 1 Maccabees 2. All right, in the GNT, it says, when Mattathias saw all the sins that were being committed in Judea and Jerusalem, he said, why was I born to see these terrible things, the ruin of my people and of the holy city? Must I see? And, remember, Jerusalem is a people before a place. So in our time, especially when you wake up to the truth, this feeling right here kind of comes over you. Like, God damn, like, look at the state of our people. Why? Is there even an escape to this situation that we're in? What's the fucking point? There has to be something else, right? You're in that spirit before you, majority of the time, you're in that spirit before you come into this thing. All right, continuing on. Must I sit here helpless while the city is surrendered to the enemies? Because they were under attack, right? We're still under attack unto this day. And ironically, by the same people. Well, it's not ironic, all right? It's prophecy. And the temple falls into the hands of foreigners. Okay? So our people as a whole have fallen into the hands of foreigners and taken on to their ways. Our land is trodden down by the Gentiles. Okay? The temple is like someone without honor. Its splendid furnishings have been carried away as loot. Our children have been killed in the streets, and our young men by the sword of the enemy. And that's happening to this day. You know, we have no surety of our life in this land. And it's getting ready to happen in an even bigger way. World War III is brewing. They're having a draft, and this devil's going to come down like a flood, the scriptures say. So, you know, what man are you out to be in all holy conversation and godliness? Verse 8, it says, the temple is like someone without honor, and splendid furnishings have been carried away as loot. Our children have been killed in the streets, and our young men by the sword of the enemy. Every nation in the world has occupied the city and robbed her of her possessions. All right? Just like it talks about in Psalms 83, the nations, let me go get it really quick. It talks about them being in cahoots, confederate against us. And I'm going to read this again in the GNT. I got my GNT on me. It fits in my pocket. All right? Psalms 83 and 1. It says, oh God, do not keep silent. Do not be still. Do not be quiet. Look, your enemies are in revolt. All right? It's a prayer. And those who hate you are rebelling. Okay? These nations are haters of God. That's why they lift up all those profane ways that are contrary to the decrees that we were given. Okay, when you go to Romans 1, it talks about, you know, the Lord giving someone over to a reprobate mind. And then it gives you the telltale signs that someone has been given over to a reprobate mind. It starts to list off a bunch of characteristics towards the end of Romans 1. So when you start to see those characteristics pop up in someone persistently, because we're all, you know, becoming. But when you see those characteristics are embedded in someone, and this is what they uplift and uphold and prize, you know that they've been given over to a reprobate mind. Okay? And then one of those characteristics within in Romans 1 at the end, it tells you that they're haters of God. So the other nations and the ways they uplift men, they have a reprobate spirit. Okay? Let's continue on here in verse 2 in the GNT. Look, your enemies are in revolt, and those that hate you are rebelling. They are making secret plans against you, against your people. Say, they are plotting against those you protect. Come, they say, and let us destroy their nation, so that Israel will be forgotten forever. And that's what they've tried to do with the stealing of our heritage, with the calling us black, with the pushing of this way of, you know, just complete degeneracy that they put in front of your face every day, that the children see at it. As soon as they come out of the womb, all they see is degeneracy from people that look like them. Okay? That's not by coincidence, man. Verse 5. They agree on their plan and form an alliance against you. That's why when you look at the all the nations, when they have the for slipping my mind what it's called, when all the nations gather and they have a representative, there's no representative for our people. Who's the representative they sent for us? Edom, because we live here in Babylon the Great, and all the Israelites scattered in different lands. They don't put Israelites on those seats unless they're in the pocket. So our cause is never heard. And all the plans that they make and the decrees that they push are not beneficial to the nation of the bloodline descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, now continue on. Verse 6, the people, it starts, verse 5 actually. It's going to start to list off the actual nations or who are involved. Okay, and all these nations that are listed are the nations that are major powers today. They agree on their plan and form an alliance against you. The people of Edom, right? So the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. All right. And the Ishmaelites, okay? The Arabs, they over there, they control a lot of the oil and resources. The people of Moab, the Chinese, who are in cahoots with the Russians. The Russians are also Edomites. And the Hagarites, Hamites, And the people of Gabal, Ammon, the Japanese, and Amalek, the chief tribe of Edom, which would be the Joo, or small hats. All right. And of Philistia and Tyre. Assyria also joined them as a strong ally of all the Ammonites and Moabites and the descendants of Lot. So look, the nations are confederate against us. No wonder the examples that you see of yourself promote behavior in a way that separates you from your power. If you don't have the eyesight to see that, it's not something that you could take upon yourself. The Lord has to choose you. But if you have been chosen to see and you realize something is wrong, Zephaniah 2 and 3 is the answer. Seek righteousness, seek meekness, so that you may be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. The Lord is coming back. He's going to solve it. All right? By way of the destruction of this kingdom. And that's going to happen via World War III. In the midst of that, the Lord is going to return. That's biblical prophecy. But before that, we have the hour of temptation, where he's going to try to push the RFID chip, the microchip, on you to even function within his society. You're going to be given that ultimatum by the devil. Now, if you receive that mark in Revelation 13:16, which goes back to the Greek word charagma, which is a physical incision in the flesh, what you're doing ultimately is you're making this man your God instead of the Most High, because you're saying, okay, I'm going to depend on you for peace, for safety, for protection, for provisions, for problem solving. I'm going to depend on you. I'm going to become your possession, because what that mark is like it's an awl, or a digital awl. Back in ancient times, people would brand their slaves to say, hey, I have ownership of this person. And if you receive that mark, you've now become a possession of the wicked. Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Right? And people aren't going to look at it that way, but truly that's what it is. It says that no man might buy or sell. If you can't buy or sell, you can't function within society. So we're going to have to depend and have faith, right, that the Lord is going to provide for us. Read Matthew the 6th chapter, 19 on down, okay? We're going to have to depend on him. And that's what the Lord wants. That's the only way we can please the Lord. Truly, the scriptures tell us that. And that's why the question is posed within the scriptures. When he returns, shall he find faith on the earth? Because that's what he's going to be looking for. Now let's go back to 1 Maccabees 2. And we were at verse 10. It says, every nation, this is in the G&T, well, again, every nation in the world has occupied the city, people before a place, and robbed her of her possessions. All her ornaments have been stripped away. She is now a slave, no longer free. Look at our temple, profaned by the Gentiles, empty of all its splendor. Why should we go on living? So, hey, man, Mattathias was in the spirit of mourning. All right. And the elect, they're going to be in that spirit of mourning, even in this time. We're in a kingdom shrouded by evil. Okay, was not Lot vexed from day to day with the filthy conversation of the wicked? And the scriptures call him a just man. In Ezekiel 9, the 9th chapter, in the 4th verse, it says, set a mark upon them that sigh and that cry for the abominations being done in the midst thereof. You see the prophets doing that. You see the believers doing that, sighing and crying for all this evil taking place that we're shrouded in. All right, continuing on, verse 14. So we get all these examples of the mindset and the conduct of the elect throughout the volume of the book. Verse 14, it says, in their grief, Mattathias and his sons tore their clothes, put on sackcloth, and continued in deep mourning. All right, which was a custom to show that, man, you were in a lower state. Verse 15. Then the king's officials, who were forcing the people to turn from God, came to the town of Modin to force the people there to offer pagan sacrifices. And that's what's coming to us in our time. They're getting ready to try to force the people to receive that charagma. We got a preliminary round of what it would, a small little, not even a taste, just a little lick of what it would be like with that in 2020 with the hokey pokey, the jump shot, the jab, keep your jab out, right? That pressure, times 100. because your literal life is going to be on the line. And you're going to be able to see that your life is on the line if you refuse to bend the knee to this devil in that time. When he comes with the microchip, man. But let's observe the spirit that Mattathias was in, which set the example on how we should be. All right? I'm going to start at verse 15 again. It says, then the king's officials who were forcing the people to turn from God, that's what they're doing, that's part of what they're doing, putting up all these examples, but it's going to come in a more physical fashion, came to the town of Modin to force the people there to offer pagan sacrifices. Many of the Israelites came to meet them, including Mattathias and his sons. The king's officials said to Mattathias, you are a respected leader in this town, and you have the support of your sons and relatives. Now you have a lot of Israelite leaders, right? Who, I'm speaking as a man, but by their actions, it seems kind of evident that they made the wrong decision in this scenario, because they're leading many of the congregation, many of the believers astray. And a lot of them are going to be a lot of people that say they believe, because the elect, all right, they're going to be fine. Even those that are martyrs of the elect, they're going to be raised up first. Okay? But I'm going to read this again. It says, this is what the official said to Mattathias. It says, you are a respected leader in this town, and you have the support of your sons and relatives. Why not be the first one to do what the king has commanded? To separate from God, right? All the Gentiles, the people of, scroll over, turn the page. The people of Judea and all the people left in Jerusalem have already done so. All right? So, hey, man, everybody else is doing it. Why don't you do it? If you do, you and your sons will be honored with the title of friends of the king. We don't want to be friends of the king. The king, all right, especially Esau, Edom, the Lord has a indignation towards him. Why would you want to be friends with somebody who is in opposition to the Most High? And I say opposition, even though the Lord is controlling both sides, but you understand. Why would you want to be friends with somebody who is pushing a contrary way than the righteousness the Lord has given us to keep? All right? Like it says in James, to be a friend of the world is to be at enmity with God. All right? So you could replace this quote here in verse 18, friends of the king. You could replace that and put friends of the world. And you will be rewarded with silver and gold and many gifts. Now, this was a temptation. And all the men of the Lord are always going to be tempted. We're going to be tried and tested. Like it says in Sirach 2, it says, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. All right? Be ready to be tested. The tools, the weaponry I've equipped you with in the spirit, you're going to have to put it to use. Okay? Same way Yahushua was tested. He was tested 3 times. Completely tempted. All right, verse 19. And this gets me hyped when I read it, man. 2 Maccabees 2:19 in the GNT. Mattathias answered in a loud voice, lift up thy voice like a trumpet. I don't care if I don't care if every Gentile in this empire has obeyed the king and yielded to the command. I'm reading in the dark at work, so bear with me. I'm gonna read that again. 1 Maccabees 2:19. Mattathias answered in a loud voice, I don't care if every Gentile in this empire has obeyed the king and yielded to the command to abandon the religion of his ancestors. My children, my relatives, and I will continue to keep the covenant that God made with our ancestors. And I suspect that he might even quoted Joshua. Let's go get that precept I'm thinking about. This is the book of Joshua 24:15. It says, and if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, Choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So that's the spirit we're supposed to be in. And that's the spirit the elect are going to be in during that hour of temptation. You see? But we're always given a contrast, right? So as we continue here, this is 1 Maccabees 2. And I'll just start at 19 again. It says, Mattathias answered in a loud voice, I don't care if every Gentile in this empire has obeyed the king and yielded to the command to abandon the religion of his ancestors. My children, my relatives, and I will continue to keep the covenant that God made with our ancestors. And that lines exactly up what we just read in Joshua, verse 21. With God's help, we will never abandon his law or disobey his commands. With God's help, right? Because we can't do it ourselves. You know what I mean? Even keeping the commandments can't save you, especially in our time, man, because we're completely engulfed by the other nations. The way the whole society is structured, but we strive to the best of our ability to keep the ways of the Lord. But it's going to come a time we're going to completely separate from this place. And we're going to be much closer to the Lord because we're going to be completely separated, all right, from this system. So we're going to be keeping the ways on an even higher level during that time. All right. Let's see here. Verse 22. We will not obey the king's decree, and we will not change our way of worship in the least. Just as he finished speaking, one of the men, this is the contrast I was speaking about. Just as he finished speaking, one of the men from Modian decided to obey the king's decree and stepped out in front of everyone to offer a pagan sacrifice on the altar and stood there. When Mattathias saw him, he became angry enough to do what had to be done. Shaking with rage, it was the Lord's rage that was put upon Mattathias. He ran forward and killed the man right there on the altar. He also killed the royal official who was forcing the people to sacrifice, and then he tore down the altar. In this way, Mattathias showed his deep devotion for the law, just as Phinehas had done when he killed Zimri, the son of Salu. Then Mattathias went through the town shouting, "Everyone who is faithful to God's covenant and obeys his law, follow me." So that was the beginning of the revolt. All right. Yeah, man. Again, I'll say this. The weapons of our warfare are spiritual and not carnal to the pulling down of strongholds. But there are going to be men that are made hunters. Okay? Especially when everything hits the fan and this devil comes in to attack us in defense of the Lord's faithful. He's going to, bestow upon particular men, a strong defense. They're going to be given spiritual power. They're going to be able to maneuver against, the wicked. When he comes down with all his technology, his troops, and all these different attacks and these things that he wants to do to try to, get rid of the elect. So, Abaratazah, the lesson was edifying. I want to give all praises once more to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And I want to say shalom to all the brothers. And, of course, the few sisters who are pursuing this truth in sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your house. Remain faithful, brothers. Shalom.